Hello, and welcome to another edition of Ethan Has Huge Hair. I am your host, Ethan, and I have huge hair, which I've actually kind of smushed down, but I may go full extension later on. If you're just joining us at 7:01 p.m. May 16th, Tuesday night on the East Coast, it's still Tuesday night on the West Coast, different time though. If you're just joining us, say hi. Let us know you're here. Let us know where you're from. As always, we like to give it a couple minutes to get people settled in and watching. Hey, Robert. Good to see you. Hey, Emmy. Emmy? I looked at Elixon and Amy. Hey, Amy. Hey, Cash. I saw that. Hey, Matt B in his house. Good to see everyone. How is everyone? I do realize that I shaved and my hair is large, and it's just what's going on right now. It's the deets. Hey, Liz. Or Mom, as you're also known by some, only me, really. Hey, Jen. So if you're just joining us, we have about another 45 seconds. So let me know you're here. Say hi. Teresia in Sweden. Hello from Sweden. I guess no, the weather should be pretty nice right now, I think. Right? Right? Do you know if you're in Sweden? So I hope everyone is doing well. Looking forward to getting into tonight's conversation. Again, please excuse my size of my hair. It's longer than usual. So maybe try a mohawk. You know, I usually go with the fro, honestly. I'll do it. I'm not afraid. I go out of screen, but I usually go with that. There we go. Which I could maybe keep it this way the whole time. It would be a pretty solid social exposure. And this way I can be this makes me of average height for men. But yeah, we can just keep it this way. I'm down. Make it interesting. Mohawk would be cool, I guess, with some gel for sure. Anyway, so if you're just joining us, welcome to Community Conversations. My name is Ethan. Dave made me put my hair this way. It's a wonderful exposure. Your hair is the right size, Ethan. Thank you. I appreciate that. I can go on all the roller coasters at Disney now, so it's a good thing. Let's jump in. Let's jump into some housekeeping, and then we'll get started. I feel like I'm gonna have to like have a caveat for why I look like I stuck my finger in a light socket every time somebody new comes on. So maybe I'll tame it a little bit. All right. My name is Ethan Smith. I'm a national advocate for the International OCD Foundation. This community conversation is intended to serve as educational content and is not intended to replace therapy. For treatment-related questions, please be sure it's messy like our lives. I totally agree with you. Thank you for that. My hair is just a representation of my life as a whole. Please be sure to work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. The International OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline. If you're in crisis or you're ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room or call 911 or the 988 Suicide and the Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. We want to create a safe space and be kind and respectful to everyone. At the end of the day, we're all here to support one another. A note, this is being broadcast on several social media platforms and is being recorded for quality assurance. With all of that, good evening. Hope everyone is doing well. Matt B wrote, hey, Ethan, I'm all good. How are you? Awesome hairstyle. I need to embrace the epic Ethan hairstyle. I like it. I'm down. Matt Mohawk needs to happen. You know, maybe you never know. We have another we have another community conversation next week. So perhaps, although I am getting a haircut on Thursday, so it will not be here. Hi, Karen from Texas. It's good to have you here. All right. So as always, lower the camera. How's everyone doing tonight? How's everyone this week? When last we saw you, we were doing a town hall on family dynamics. If you were there, I hope you got something out of it. But this is just us. So how's everyone doing? How's your OCD treating you? How are you treating yourselves? As always, I can jump into a million different stories about my week or my 2 weeks. And there's lots to talk about. But as always, I want to give you an opportunity. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions, please feel free to leave a comment. And otherwise, I'll just kind of start the conversation. I think there's two things. Yeah, I think the theme of tonight's conversation, and we've touched on this theme often, is self-care, and with that, self-compassion. So for me, I had been traveling every week since the end of March, and I do not sleep well anyway at home. So I really don't sleep well on the road. Hey, Nikki Bradley in Dublin. I don't sleep well when I'm on the road in hotels. I just can't sleep in hotels, and even when I'm in my own bed, if I haven't been there in a minute, it takes me 3 or 4 days to get used to it. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Matt, fill me in on that. I'd like to hear more about your trigger if you don't mind sharing, and maybe we can talk it through. I appreciate the clean shave. Yeah, I wanted to look like look a little, shave a few years off. So it happens. But anyway, so I was traveling every week and going back and forth from hotel to my house, and God, I just wasn't getting enough sleep, and my OCD was spiking in a way that it hasn't spiked in a long time, and it was really challenging to do some of my travels, despite in spite of my OCD. Though I was willing to get uncomfortable and live toward my values and do all the things that I always share and suggest that other people do as well. One trip in particular, I was feeling really terrible, but got myself on a plane, did all the things I was supposed to do, and just I did it feeling like crap. And it was a good opportunity to sort of remind myself, A, that we're strong enough to do that, and B, that doing something like that really resets your whole mindset on everything. But needless to say, I wore myself down, got a little sick, and it was just a reminder. I was able to some things happened with work, and I was able to I didn't need to take the last trip I was going on, and so I was able to rest when I wasn't feeling well, physically and mentally. And God, it's amazing when you really give yourself an opportunity to allow yourself enough compassion to do self-care. It's hard because even though I was sick and completely something had occurred to change the trip of what I was taking for work, and I still wanted to go and see people, but I knew I didn't want to A, get them sick, and B, I needed to take care of myself from a physical standpoint, but as well as a mental. It's weird. I felt guilty. I felt guilty for not traveling, even though things changed. They weren't I didn't change them. And, people understand. You're human. People understand if you get sick. But I think we all I struggle with a Superman complex in the sense that I want to be all things to all people all the time. And I want to be perfect. I want to be a rock. And I always want to be, you can rely on me no matter what. And this felt like a violation of that, even though everybody was fine and totally understood and wanted me to rest, and it wasn't a big thing. But I finally was able to let go and sort of give myself room to rest. And it was amazing because within 2 days, my OCD was back to baseline. My anxiety was back to baseline. My emotions were back to baseline. Hey, love, Lana. And yeah, when you really open yourself up and to self-care by way of giving yourself self-compassion and love, especially when you've been through it, right? You're doing the things, you're engaging in value-driven decisions, you're doing opposite action. And it doesn't mean that just because you're doing, hey, Lola, just because you're doing those things doesn't mean that it isn't exhausting. It's exhausting to fight OCD. It's exhausting to not fight OCD. It's just OCD and anxiety is just an exhausting thing, right? And so, what's the difference if you're going to be exhausted? Well, the difference is that you're leading a productive, value-driven life, and you get to be exhausted. And I think that's a good thing. Hey, Erica, it's good to see you. So I'm really proud I had some big wins in the last month and a half in terms of when I'm triggered. how I've behaved in the past and how I behaved this time. Oh, I didn't see you, Michelle. Hey, Michelle. So that was awesome. But it brought up the question for me of get to your point, Lola, grace, giving yourself grace and permission to pull back and take a breath when you can and when it's appropriate, and it really was quite helpful. So just a quick story. I want to jump to Matt, who is willing to share a little bit of what he's been going through. So at 7:08 p.m., Matt wrote, "The theme I've been recovering from is visual Tourettic OCD. I got triggered from past traumatic memories with it while I was at a restaurant with my family." It continues at 7:11, which was enjoying my meal with my family, giving myself self-compassion. This is a disorder. It doesn't define who I am, and I pulled through. That's awesome. I mean, talk about self-compassion, right? So yeah, I mean, and then I'll continue. 7:12 p.m. Matt just added, whereas when I was at rock bottom last year, I would have been obsessing and ruminating all week. And that's the thing. I mean, this is like the perfect example of essentially what our goal is as OCD warriors, which is it isn't to eliminate OCD thoughts that are OCD, right? It isn't to, I mean, that's the goal. We would love to, but the ultimate goal is to, when it's good, and when it pops up, how do we respond to it, and how do we jump into action? Are we willing to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and giving ourselves grace and giving ourselves permission, and using skills and tools to be able to move through it. And when you do that, I think, as Matt can elaborate on, I hate when I get texts on here because I lose my train of thought. As Matt can elaborate on, the OCD gets quiet really quickly. And I skipped Matt's probably the most important message that he wrote at 7:10 p.m., which is what he did during that time. So Matt wrote, "I used all therapy treatment techniques I've learned with CBT, ERP, ACT, and mindfulness. I fully embraced the uncertainty, sat with the discomfort, and kept reaching toward my values." I mean, like, you can't ask for a better example of what to do when triggered. OCD will pop up at any time, and in some ways that's scary. In some ways that's indicative of what an illness is like, right? It lets us know that we aren't our OCD, and you can be doing all the right things, and a thought can pop up or something can occur to remind you of something, and it can be really, really triggering. But I think that understanding that we have two choices when that occurs, and I don't always choose the right choice, but we do have choices, and the choices, we can succumb and get really scared, right? Or we can put it to bed and be willing to take a chance. And I think that's a great example, Matt, of you using skills and tools and taking a chance and letting the ick be there, as Katie says, sitting with the ick. And I mean, there's nothing more to be said. I think you said it perfectly. Fully embraced the uncertainty, sat with the discomfort, and kept reaching towards my values. And and I think you made a point at saying, like, that you would have been obsessing all week. And now, I mean, my question to you, Matt, is, are you still obsessing, or is it gotten quiet again? And that's really the ultimate goal of living in management and recovery, is this idea of, that doesn't mean that it isn't going to pop up. It means that when it pops up, if we can put it back to bed really quickly, it responds really well when you do that. In other words, I like to say you can put the fire out very, very quickly. Whereas, when you were first engaging in treatment, and you had, in the beginning, I should say, it was a lot harder to, obviously, as you did things to get the OCD to quiet down. So I think that's a lot of reason to continue to use skills and tools and little wins to keep the OCD at bay. And I always think that's really interesting how, like, again, it felt like a 4-alarm fire for me when I was sick, and it felt like it took months to put the fire out. And now I feel like I just kind of snuff it out with a candle snuffer thingy, whatever that's called, and the flame goes out right away. And that's the beauty of living in maintenance and management. So Awesome, Matt. Thank you so much for sharing. I love this. Okay, so let's continue this theme. So I'm going to read Matt's additional comment in a minute. Let's talk about wins. So in the last couple of weeks or month, what have been your wins around OCD and anxiety? What have your wins in your mental health? All wins are celebrated. I don't necessarily like to categorize, little wins and big wins. I think wins are wins. And so whether you got up and took a shower or, you saved a little girl from drowning, it's a win. That's a terrible example. But Matt B wrote at 7:16, it's gotten very quiet. I put OCD in the back seat while I'm in the front seat, as Katie says brilliantly, sticking with the ick. Thank you, Ethan. I really appreciate it. And that's what I was getting at, is like, not, it's are you willing, short-term pain, long-term gain. I mean, that in an essence and in a nutshell is what Matt's talking about. So it's like, I'm going to choose to be uncomfortable right now, to choose to not be uncomfortable for a long period of time if I give into this thing, right? So I think that's a very intentional choice, and it's important to hear the result of that choice, which is by Matt choosing to not give in, to be scared, to be uncomfortable, to risk the things that he's afraid of. He knew that it would eventually get quiet again, and it would get quiet a lot quicker than if he had engaged in compulsions and gave into the OCD. And whereas he'd been struggling for weeks after the fact, he's feeling pretty good. And I think that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and Love Lana wrote 7:17 p.m. The ick sucks, but when sitting with it works, there's the good feelings of relief and homeostasis, or homeostatic. And I think that's what we're, sitting with the ick and living with the discomfort, and sitting with the discomfort is never about trying to feel good in the moment. It's always about putting it to bed in that moment so it doesn't become bigger than it needs to be. And I think that's awesome. So Erica, thank you for answering my question. Erica at 7:18 p.m. wrote, gave myself permission to mostly unplug while I've been dealing with some heavy emotions and feelings. I love that. Yeah, and I was talking about self-compassion and not self-compassion, self-care. And so I think that's really, really important. What are some other wins that you all had this week or in the past few weeks in regards to your own mental health and mental well-being, or OCD or anxiety? And while just going to type a quick message. Sarah wrote, I feel like I've had quite a few wins lately. I love that. But one is I'm having more fun being social instead of it feeling super stressful. Yes. I was about to say that's a huge win, but I'm now on record saying that all wins are the same. So like, I experienced that when I started really embracing treatment and getting better. God, anything social, whether it was just because of social anxiety or OCD, really stressed me out. And I used to be so envious of my friends, or jealous, call it what it is. Because, they'd go out and have fun, and I'd be like, how can you just go out and have fun? Like, this is really hard for me. And I was very envious of that. And when I started getting better, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, going out is cool. I enjoy this. And I probably still have anxiety around. I mean, Katie will tell you I still have anxiety around gatherings and things like that. They're just not my favorite thing. But it doesn't mean that when I get there, I don't have fun if I let myself. So I love that. I think that's awesome. And definitely something to celebrate, Sarah. So congrats on that. Amy at 7:19 p.m. wrote, enjoyed time with family on a trip. OCD tried to rear its head, but I love and value my family. I chose family time instead of OCD safety behaviors. I love this conversation. I should ask this every time I come on, because this is great. Amy, like, fantastic. And I think, the biggest piece of that is this insight that everyone is showing that they have. When you're in it and it pops up and you can recognize the values, you can recognize that you do have a choice of how to respond. And I don't know what I was doing with my fingers just there, casting a magic trick. And then making the choice to choose family over OCD. And that's really what it's about. And the more you practice that, the more you can choose your values, almost every time or every time. And it's still important to, if you chose in the opposite, to give yourself compassion and at the same time want more for yourself the next time, right? So our goal is to keep doing this. And if we don't, we're going to give ourselves grace for it and move forward the next time. No different than, you're changing your nutritional lifestyle, you're on a diet or a food change, and you go off for a day or two, do you throw it all away or you get back on the tracks, right? And so we want to treat OCD the same way as well. Laura at 7:19 p.m. wrote, my whole family likes to judge my mental illness. Why is that? It's a great question, Laura. So we did a town hall last week on navigating family dynamics, and Amanda can put a link to that in the comment thread, so you can check it out. We answer a lot of we talk a lot about this in that thread. But ultimately, well, first of all, I'm sorry that happens. You're most definitely not alone. I'm sure many people can relate to that, and most of the time, judgment comes from lack of understanding and lack of education. And if I'm incorrect or I don't have some information, Laura, please feel free to weigh in. But yeah, most of the time, they don't understand that it's a disorder or disease. They think that, you're choosing to be a certain way, and that, you should just be able to suck it up and get over it, which is obviously, thank you, Amanda, perfect, which is obviously not the case in this situation. So most of the time it's from, lack of education and lack of understanding. The hope is that, Laura, you can potentially help educate your family and help them understand what's going on. There are a couple ways to do this, when you're feeling good and you're feeling calm, easy, there's wonderful resources on the IOCDF website. You can pull up a video and say, hey, mom, dad, would you mind, watching this with me, or significant other, or whatever, I want you to learn a little bit more about what I'm going through. You can show them an article from somebody that you respect, or, but usually hearing it from a different voice is really helpful. It's just reframed in a way that parents will listen to. So, I would try there, but it's definitely not uncommon. And I know it feels really crappy. But I'll give out my email at the end, and hopefully I'm happy to offer you, but there's some great, if you click that link and watch it, there's some really great insights about navigating your family. We had that question multiple times, and we had a lot of experts talk about it. So thank you, Laura, for sharing. I appreciate it. Martin at 7:20 wrote, doing my taxes and finances right now, procrastinating for months because it's all numbers which bring intrusion. Sitting with the ick right now, listening to y'all is helping. Thank you. Absolutely, Martin. And by the way, doing taxes, I think, causes most people anxiety. So not necessarily an OCD thing, no, but I do know what you're saying about numbers for sure. And yeah, I think that's awesome that you're diving in now, and it's triggering, but I think being here and supporting, letting us support while you do your thing is fantastic. So thanks for commenting, Martin. Appreciate you. Michelle wrote, I'm setting 7:21 p.m. I'm setting boundaries with a difficult family member and am okay with it. Boundaries are so hard. I was having this talk with Katie, she just won't leave me alone. I need to set a boundary. No, I'm totally kidding. Setting boundaries, family, work, friends, it's so challenging because for those of us that, everyone in this community is so giving of themselves and nurturing, and will probably, put on the other person's oxygen mask before we put it on ourselves, which is not what you want to do. And so boundary setting is really challenging, but it's a very powerful tool, both for ourselves and the people that we care about. And so, major credit, Michelle. I think that's really hard to do, but I'm glad you're okay with it. And I think that, it's in the benefit of everybody, whatever's going on. So, I'm definitely not a master boundary setter. I feel like I'm going to be a consistent student of boundary setting. Oh, side note. Oh no, it's not live. Sorry. I'm doing 2 podcasts tomorrow with Kim Quinlan, your anxiety toolkit. And I was thinking that would be on live, but it's not. But stay tuned. We can talk more about that later. Sorry, I had a bit of a end of day brain Love Lana wrote, I'm learning so effing much. I appreciate that. I learned from you too. Stacy Quick. Hey, Stacy. Good to see you. Stacy Quick at 7:22 p.m. wrote, people just don't understand what they don't know. And that is true. And, you know, I like to say we always like to educate. I always call reducing stigma compassionate education, right? It's so easy to get upset and get angry, especially when it's stigmatizing, especially when you're suffering and it's stigmatizing. It feels insensitive. It feels raw. It feels nasty. Oh my God, I have the best story for you. I totally have to tell this story, and then I want to get back into your comments. But anyway, I like to compassionately. So let me just tell you real quick. Hopefully you'll get a laugh out of this. Valerie Andrews in the house. And then I'll jump back up. I just need to remind myself where I was. Okay, effing much. Oh, Stacy Quick's comment. Okay, perfect. So can I just tell you, I went to get a physical a couple of weeks ago. This doctor was an asshole. And it's the first time I've been to him because all my other doctors keep quitting. And I am starting to take it personally because I have health anxiety. Maybe I'm too difficult. No, but they left for other reasons. So I go to this new doctor. And he was so dismissive of everything. Like, he read my chart and then he would say, so what's going on? I'd be like, oh, I've been noticing blah, blah, blah. Well, you have anxiety. It's like, I'm pretty sure that's not anxiety. Like, I'll tell you what's anxiety. I'm well-versed. It's not your job to point out. So everything I talked about, he kept blaming it on mental illness. And it drove me nuts. And I don't get irritated, very angry. Like, I just chalk it up. But he's a doctor, and which doesn't mean anything. I mean, doctors that are in therapy don't know how, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, it's really pissing me off because every single thing I said, he's like, well, you have a history of OCD and it's probably blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not why my pinky toe hurts all the time. Like, that isn't on the list of like anxiety symptoms. It's like, oh, left pinky toe and a lot of pain. That's not the best part. So he does the exam. And then afterwards, he goes, he says, go ahead and check out. And I've printed out a packet for you. Take it home and read it. I think there's some stuff for you to learn about. So I get this packet. It's like this thick. And on the top of it is like, hey, thanks for seeing us, blah, 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 blah. Please read your stuff. And I open it up. And on the top page, there's a picture of somebody washing their hands, which is never stigmatizing. And the title says, How to Treat Your OCD at Home. And then it listed all the things that I should be doing to treat my OCD, including practicing regular exposures. Try some exercises. Like, oh my God, seriously? Okay, and then I turned the page. How to treat bipolar at home. And it, again, gave a bunch of things. And then it was like, turn the next page. How to treat asthma at home. How to treat obesity at home. Then it said how to live a healthier lifestyle. And like, I was looking at this, and I remember at the very beginning of the conversation, he was like, are you depressed? And I'm like, I am now. Like, what are you doing? Oh my God. It was so offensive. It was so offensive. I felt so dismissed. I called Katie and I was like, I feel like breaking into tears right now. Like, I know that he's just a doctor and doesn't really know and all those things, but like, seriously, like, how to treat OCD at home. 5 easy steps. Anyway, I laugh at it now. And on top of that, like, I had nothing but good things to report. Everything was normal on the physical, so I'll be around hopefully a little longer, much to Cash's dismay when he told me I was going to die last week or the week before. But yeah, oh my gosh. So that, yeah, it was, I thought, I don't know, hopefully you got a laugh out of that. Hey, Alexandra. Valerie knows, she shares some of my health anxiety for sure. But it was, from the way he talked about it, he blamed everything on anxiety and OCD, to then just being like, here's a packet to help yourself. I was just like, oh my God, this guy. So anyway, I found that irritating and it really pissed me off. And I really wanted to go back and educate him, but I just decided to leave it alone. And I don't know, maybe I'll sign him up for Scientology or something. Anyway, moving on. I don't know what reminded me of, because Stacy wrote, people don't understand what they don't know. And that's the gist of it. And I love that saying, because we kind of have to say that to ourselves, as people may say or do things that are stigmatizing to ourselves, to our OCD, to our anxiety, to be able to sit there and be like, they just don't know, and there are people out there that do know, and they're being asses. And I'm pleased to report that those people are few and far between, and they really are. So we might kind of come up against that on social media or the media and things like that. But 90% of the time, people genuinely are open to learning and understanding what they've done, and and how it could be harmful and hurtful. And in conversations that I've had with folks, me personally, everybody's been really receptive, and then not only been receptive, but opened up about potential mental health struggles that they've had, or family or friends that impact their life. And so, struggle is a common denominator that we all share. So, and Sarah shared my agreement. I understand that taxes are triggering for me too. I think that taxes are triggering. Matt B at 7:24 p.m. wrote, I'll be submitting a submission to advocate for visual Tourette OCD this week for the IOCDF virtual conference. How many people can I have on a panel with me, Ethan? 5 people, including you. 5 people. That is usually unless something changed, and don't quote me on that, because there's always things changing, but I'm pretty sure it's similar to this. So no more than 5 people. Yeah. Awesome, Matt. And yeah, I'll talk about it. The virtual conference submissions are live and happening, so we'll talk about that at the end. Yeah, Stacy, quick. Stacy, you got the best lines. I mean, not lines, but they're good. Stacy at 7:25 p.m. You can't pour from an empty cup. I love that saying. That is so true. I mean, you can, but nothing will come out. I love you guys tonight. Everybody's so witty. Love Lana wrote, by the way, people at 7:25 p.m. By the way, people get it wrong. God doesn't care if we cuss, as long as we don't cuss at people. Good to know. So we can just curse about them later. I'm down with that. Erica, chronic people pleaser here. Boundaries are so difficult, but absolutely worth it once you get more practice. I totally agree. I love that Valerie's here. Thank you, Matt B, for the Kim Quinlan podcast. I'll let you all know when it comes out. Katie and I are doing one on relationships, and then I'm doing another one on self-compassion. So I think they'll be really good. And on Friday, I'm doing an OCD stories with Stu. So I haven't done one since 2018 or 2019. So I'm excited to jump back on the mic with him. Alexandra Reynolds, who actually does live in my neighborhood, said, I hope I don't go to this doctor. I will send you his name so we can avoid him at all costs. That's funny. Hey, Stacy Rosenthal Young. At 7:29 p.m., Gabriella wrote, I have a constant struggle with making decisions about work and future because I'm afraid of leaving my mom. I feel time passing, which makes my OCD worse, and I enter an endless loop. Gabriella, can I ask you you don't have to answer, but can I ask you a question and ask how old you are, out of curiosity? Because I think the answer may change depending on that age. And also, I very much relate to what you're saying, because I really struggled with the same thing. So I have some thoughts, but I'm curious, if you don't mind me asking, or even just an age range, if you're comfortable with that. And if you're offended, I apologize. So I will hang tight for that, but I definitely want to weigh in on that. Don't let me forget to weigh in on that. Matt B wrote about Valerie Andrews. Your presentation for the Faith and OCD conference was great. Really enjoyed it and took a lot away from it. At Valerie, I love that. Thank you. Yes, condescending. Okay, Ethan, send that doctor all your speeches. That's a good idea. I should email my speeches. I got all vindictive and no, I'm not going to educate him. I'm going to torture him. But yeah, no, bless his heart. That's it. 5 easy steps at home. We wish, right? I agree. 26, almost 27. Thank you, Gabrielle. I appreciate it. Okay, so we'll pull your question back up at 7:29 p.m. So I can speak for personal experience, Gabriella. My biggest thing, I don't know if you know, I haven't seen your name before, so I welcome if this is your first time, and if you've been here before, then welcome back. My OCD, revolved around a myriad of symptoms. But one of the things that I really struggled with was leaving my parents. And some of it was tied to OCD, and some of it was just entanglement, where I really never separated from them. And it was really hard to tease out the OCD from sort of the entanglement and relationship that we had. My parents really lived to support my OCD and assure and enable it, because they didn't know any different, right? Because parenting is counterintuitive to treatment is counterintuitive to parenting. So my biggest fear was leaving home, leaving my mom, and my dad too, but my mom more. Sorry, Dad. And everything that involved they always went with me traveling. I was scared to go by myself. I was acting, shooting commercials and TV. They would come with me. My mom would come with me. And even when I had to go to residential for OCD, it was the worst thing in the world. My first question, or the first thing I want to throw out there is, are you in treatment? Are you seeing a clinician or someone that can support you, both your OCD, because they're definitely tied together. How your OCD relates to your parents, how your parents relate to your OCD. If you live at home, you're writing, make decisions about work and future because I'm afraid of leaving my mom. I guess, geographically leaving, I feel of time passing, which makes my OCD worse, in an endless loop. So ultimately, half of this is treating this just like OCD, which is feelings are feelings, and you have to be willing to be uncomfortable, and you need the skills and tools to do that. I can't just say that and you snap your fingers and do that, and no one has that expectation. I will tell you that for me, and I can only speak for myself, the best thing I did, or the best thing I was forced to do, honestly, was to go to residential and subsequently move away from my parents. At first, not my own decision, but I specifically, and I'm not inferring you are, this is again my story. I was probably emotionally 5 years old as it related to my parents. So the idea of being left alone, it killed me. You may have different reasons, being afraid for leaving your mom. Maybe she's not well or whatever. For me, I was afraid that something would happen to her or happen to me and I would never see her again. And for me, the Band-Aid ripping off was pretty much the only intervention. So I was 31. And although I'd lived in I'd lived outside of the home a couple times, I was always in the same city and not too far away, and called them multiple times a day. So I relate to this to some extent. I will tell you that there is more to treat, and I'm not diagnosing because I'm not a clinician, but for me, it wasn't just about the OCD. It was also treating, for lack of a better word, the dysfunction in my family, because my family had been so tied into, my parents weren't married to each other. They were married to my OCD, right? They were living for my OCD. And they just wanted to be amazing parents and support me and support and not have me suffer as most parents want to do. And so for me, what did that look like? Well, okay, well, he can't do this thing unless we go. So we're going to go so he can do that thing. And that makes him happy. And so it continued to make those bonds stronger, even though the bonds weren't healthy. Never seeing her again, something happening to her. Taking medication, going to therapy 2 to 3 times a month. Okay. And are you doing exposure and response prevention therapy, Gabriella, which is the gold standard treatment for OCD? But for me, it was two pieces. They were intertwined 100%, but I very much had to rip the Band-Aid off. And I was forced to do that. And I know you can't really force an adult, but because of where I was, I bought into everything my therapists and parents did and said, and I was put in an intervention situation. And if you want to hear more about my story, Gabriella, Amanda, if you wouldn't mind posting the link to my keynote from 2014, it goes into my relationship with my parents and sort of how we broke out of that. And it may trigger you, it may scare you a little bit, and I'm not suggesting that that is your path. It was my path and what was necessary for me. But let me tell you where I'm at now and that it is possible. So very similar, right? And there was a point in my treatment where I got separated from my parents, and like I wasn't allowed to contact them or communicate with them, and vice versa. And it felt like the worst level of abandonment. I felt like nobody loved me, nobody cared about me. They were the most important people in my life, and how could they just give up on me? Is what it felt like. Especially having come from the situation where they had always been right there, ready to hold me and make me comfortable, right? But if we widen out the scope, we recognize that they were really nurturing the OCD, not Ethan, the individual, the man, right? And so the things that were put into place were necessary in order for me to sort of rip that Band-Aid off and learn to be an individual on my own without them. And it wasn't easy. And but I will tell you that I came to a conclusion over time, and it was over about a 6 to 8 month period living in Boston, where I didn't have a whole lot of interaction with them, that my brain started to shift, and I started to realize I love my parents very, very much. They're amazing, and I wouldn't want anything to happen to them ever. But I learned that I don't need them. I don't need them. I love them. I want them in my life. I want them in my future kids' life. I want Katie and I's life. But God forbid if something happened to one or both, I would survive. It would suck, obviously, and I don't want that to happen, but I would survive. And that was the biggest realization for me in my own recovery, is making that connection that it's my life to live. I'm holding myself back. I have no control over what happens in the universe or what happens to my family. And getting to a place where wanting to be with them is very different than needing to be with them. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. And I lived 10 years in Los Angeles away from them. They lived in Florida. And now I live 15 minutes from them in Georgia. But, and you'll also discover, Gabriella, and this is a important topic, you'll also discover that as you separate either emotion or distance, and you regain those healthy boundaries where hopefully you and your mom are having a relationship, that your relationship thrives. I have a relationship with my parents that is the healthiest that it's ever been. I was closer to my parents living, 3,000 miles away than I ever was, living, sorry, I was reading your comment, living closely. And so, yeah, there's definitely hope. And no, you're definitely not alone. You're definitely not alone. And there is a path forward, and it's a good conversation to have with your therapist for sure. Stacy just wrote, my mom passed last year, which, sorry to hear, Stacy, and one of the only fears of OCD that came true, and I survived it. And that's a powerful statement, right? So thank you for sharing, Gabrielle. I appreciate that. And I know I went a little long on that, but I haven't talked about that often. So it's an important piece of conversation to have for sure. All right, let's see here. I love it, Beth. Beth Carducci at 7:34 p.m. wrote, I do ERPs on purpose and stick with the ick. I love that. Beth wrote, follow up 7:35 p.m. I find it easier because I know we all have to feel the feels, as you say, Ethan. We're all in it together. We're all in it together. And there's a path forward. And I think that's inspiring. I think that it's not all for naught. There's an end game to this, and you do it enough times, the OCD gets quieter. You really embrace that fear and uncertainty. You're really willing to scare the crap out of yourself. I'm going to say shit because I'm not cursing at anyone specifically. Thank you, Love Lana. Every time I say Love Lana, my Google Assistant beeps. So instead of Hey Google, I'm going to say Love Lana. Cancel. Anyway, but I think that what a beautiful thing is that there is a goal at the end of this, and it's a value, and it's the value is to live toward your values, and the goal is to get to a place where we can do that, and you can. And and it's so important to hear and see and talk to living proof. And living proof is in front of you. Living proof is in the text thread, and living proof doesn't mean it's perfect. Living proof doesn't mean that we do it perfectly every time, or we don't have thoughts, or we don't compulse. Living proof is simply we do the best we can. And I know OCD can seem really scary. It did for me this week too. I had some health stuff come up. Tests kill me. I hate tests. I had blood work. And I was like, I'm always a wreck. I'm always waiting for the thing. If something's off, forget it. But I think this idea of, OCD, a lot of people struggle with this idea of OCD as chronic. So it's like, well, what's the point? But like, if I look at my life before and now, like, okay, it's chronic, but I feel like I'm cured, right? I feel like even if I have obsessions, even if I compulse, like I wasn't functioning as so many of us weren't. I was in bed, not moving, being fed by my parents, to like 4 months away from my wedding, to my soulmate, building a business and living the life that I never thought I'd live. So I have an intrusive thought. So I have a compulsion. Who cares? Like, if this is chronic, I'll take it. And, so until there's a cure, I think we look at other illnesses and compare what chronic means. Chronic just means that, to me, is just like, okay, the OCD is still in my brain, but it doesn't have to impact my life. And when it does, I'll take it, because to Matt B's point, it's 2 days. It's not 2 months. You can choose that, which is powerful. It's very powerful. Something I realized, and this is also tough, and I don't know if I've said it before on the stream. I may have, but like, don't kill me for saying this, but I feel like we're lucky. Like, if we're going to have a disease, and I know that I've met so many people that have had other physical diseases with this, and they would literally, I've met people in wheelchairs that have said, just get rid of the OCD. I'd rather stay in the wheelchair. Like, it is awful. So I'm not at all saying it isn't. What I will say is, though, how cool it is to, if you have the skills and tools, and I say this humbly because I know we're working so hard to make treatment accessible and affordable and effective. And I know that's not the case for so many. So I always hate to say this, because I know some of you can't even access good treatment. And that's part of the frustration. I hate that. And, we're always fighting to make a difference in that. But, I have a friend with MS, and when she gets an episode, she has to do 2 weeks of infusions, and they make her sick and all the things. She has to go to the doctor every day and blah, 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 blah. Well, look at Matt. Matt got an episode, and he could literally do the work in his head. I mean, when you think about that, that's pretty powerful. I mean, the medicine is in our brains. You can do the work in your head and potentially feel better when an episode kicks up. I just think that's amazing. I really do. I think that feels like a miracle. The fact that I don't have to go, I'm not always, sometimes I have to go to the doctor and, change the medications around. But for the most part, how amazing is it that you can use skills and tools to be able to take them out of your bag and use some wrenches and some stuff and hammer your head a few times and you take care of it and you move forward. And I feel blessed about that. OCD is a bitch for sure. I'm just going to curse a lot this stream, but and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but being able to tackle it and being able to manage it and cope with it ourselves in the moment, that's a superpower. That's pretty cool. Oh, I didn't see your comment before, Stacy. I'm sorry. So Stacy at 736 wrote, this that is a common thing, Gabriella. I experienced this with my mother. She was my safe person. My worst fear was losing her. Yeah, and my mom too. My mom was my safe person and who I told everything to and who made everything better no matter what, whether I was 5 or 15 or 25 or 29. She went on some dates with me. They didn't know. I went on work things. She would go to the hotel at the same time, and just knowing she was there. The things that I did to get her places, when I'd go to shoot commercials or movies, I would write into my contract that my personal assistant was coming. I would call her by her first name, and she would come as my personal assistant because I was embarrassed. I'm not going to say, oh, my mom's here. I can't I can't leave the house without her. So, I acted all like, hey, I'm super cool. And here's my personal assistant, Liz. So yeah, I totally get it. But again, it's very freeing and worth pulling the tape because, it's imagine the relationship you can have, and what that looks like. That healthy whole relationship where you're not talking about OCD or concerns or things to make yourself feel better. When I got better, I started asking my mom, well, how are you doing today? I don't think I've ever asked her that before. Well, how are you? What can I do for you? How can I help you? What do you need? Being there to support my family was one of the greatest gifts to come from getting better. It was just such a gift to be able to, be a rock for them and support them in ways that they've needed over the last, 13 years. Let's see here. Oh, Beth wrote, this group is awesome, right? I agree with you. It is an awesome group. Yeah, we're going to plug Erica's group for SIG for sure. Everyone, I really recommend 7:42 p.m. Map B. Joining Erica's Rock Your Values workshop. It's a great way to express your values, navigating your way through OCD, and it's a great safe space to connect. Erica, if you're still on and you want to put in the comment threads the details of when y'all meet, please do that. And you're welcome, Gabriella, for weighing in. As I said, I'll give it my email at the end if we want to talk further. We absolutely can. Aw, Stacey Quick wrote, I send that keynote speech to every client with harm OCD themes. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you're welcome, John, who wrote, thanks for this. I need a lift. Bang Lin wrote, can risperidol cause more tic symptoms? If wearing off, will the tics be? So unfortunately, I'm not a psychiatrist. I can't answer questions on medications, and I don't like to. But if you have additional questions, feel free to you can send them to the IOCDF, and we can try to get them answered by a clinician. I genuinely don't know the answer, but even if I did, I don't like to weigh in on medication questions. It's just not appropriate. But thank you for the question, though. I appreciate that. And sorry, I can't. I actually don't know the answer, so it's not like I'm sitting here going, I know. But even if I did, but thank you for asking. I appreciate it. Jen at 747 wrote, I just had blood work and it came back. It came BSK with things off. The worst 6 weeks fighting OCD in reality, right? So hard. I immediately catastrophize everything. And when it's rooted in, there's actually something is, I was talking to my mother today, and I was kind of talking about my blood work and talking from an observational perspective. I said, it's so interesting. Like the difference when I was fighting my OCD before, and it was like, but what if I get a brain tumor? Like, what if I have one now? But there were no symptoms, there were no anything. It was a fear, right? I'm not saying one OCD fear is better or harder or worse than the other. I'm just saying, for me, I'm much better with that. But if I have if OCD has something to latch onto that's on paper, that's a test, that's a reason, if my number is 0.2 over whatever it's supposed to be, then forget it. I Googled it once and now I've got 3 days to live. So yeah, I think the stuff, the stuff that really gives it latch onto for me is a lot harder to combat than I have a headache. And it's like, yeah, it could be X, Y, and Z, or it could be a headache, and I'll just sit with the discomfort of that and not know. So Yep. And thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. I love this group tonight. Beth Carducci at 7:51 p.m. How about directing a movie about OCD? I think that's a great idea. I have a short film right now that's on the festival circuit about OCD. It's called Waving. It was shot in the UK. It's a really powerful piece. It's not public yet. It'll be public probably at the end of the summer. It's doing amazingly well on the festival circuit. It's won 2 festivals and then a bunch of awards for individual acting, cinematography, things like that. And I can't wait to share it with y'all. If you know Catherine Benefield out of the UK, she runs the blog and website Taming Olivia. She's an amazing advocate. Anyway, it's about living inside of an intrusive thought, and it triples down on discomfort where other movies have sort of, gets humorous when it gets uncomfortable. This stays dark and terrible. But it's very much like living, with a trigger. But to answer your question, I'm always working on my story, and I would love to direct a movie about OCD. So thank you for putting that out there. I will definitely take it. Matt B wrote, OCD is Pennywise from It. Learn to give it no fear factor that it craves, and it will dissipate and fade away, becoming powerless. Yeah, for sure. I love. I had a therapist when I was in treatment, when I was really struggling, who talked about his daughter. Doesn't have OCD. Ran into his bedroom. Hey, Chris Cronston. Ran into his bedroom one night and was like, Dad, there's a monster in my closet. There's a monster in my closet. Like, come look. And, the sort of parental response is, there's not a monster in your closet. Okay, look, see, no monster. I think I'm using this example because I watched Monsters, Inc. recently with Katie. But, look under the bed. Nope, nothing there either. Well, what does that do? It's how we treat OCD. It's like, no, I refuse. It's kind of like white knuckling it, right? So I said, well, what did you do? He's like, I went into the bedroom and asked if we wanted to invite it to have tea with us. And I was like, that's kind of awesome. He's like, yeah, we sat on the bed, we got the tea set out, and we waited for the monster. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe there is a monster in your room. Let's invite it to tea. And like about 10 minutes in, she thought it was stupid and went to bed. It was such a brilliant example of really like just embracing the uncertainty, being like, maybe, instead of like, absolutely not, just, yeah, maybe it is. And doing that with a kiddo and seeing like how that kid responds, and how that's very much how what we attempt to do is embrace the uncertainty of what if, even if it's something that seems ridiculous, like a monster. And he said she never asked again about it. Maybe another time she joked and said, I thought I heard something, I wanted to invite it to tea. I thought that was wonderfully brilliant. Love Lana wrote, I told my youngest son, 21, on a phone a few days ago, it's not my OCD, as a preface before asking my question. Then he said, it is definitely your OCD. Oh my gosh, he is so attuned. He was in fact right. Yeah, I found 99% of the time that if your sentence starts with, this is not OCD, then it's 100% OCD. Because most of my sentences that aren't OCD don't start with, this is not OCD. We're very good. Our OCD is very good at tricking ourselves. I love that your son's attuned. We're coming up on 8 o'clock. Oh, and I'm at the bottom. Wow. All the questions have been answered. I love this. Well, oh, my support group is listed on the IOCDF support group section. Perfect. Well, 8 p.m. It's like we planned this perfectly. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for being awesome tonight. I loved this conversation. It was honest. It was sincere. We had some new folks. You guys are so supportive and wonderful, and you give me so much more than what I give you. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being awesome. With that, some announcements. As always, thank you to Amanda and the IOCDF for putting these on, and Amanda for taking your time this evening. Registrations are open for the 28th annual OCD conference. Early bird deadline is May 15th, probably, which was yesterday. Actually, I just saw an email that they extended it. I think I saw an email. It was extended, right, Amanda? Anyway, the annual OCD conference is the largest conference in San Francisco this year. You can register at iocdf.org/OCDCon. She responded to my extension question. Yes, it was just extended. Okay, perfect. So early bird is still activated. So yeah, I would love to see y'all in San Francisco. So definitely check it out. Also, I know it's expensive. There are volunteer opportunities where you get your registration paid for. I'm not exactly sure where they are in that process, but there's scholarships. There's lots of different things. So please don't hesitate to reach out to the IOCDF, check, and inquire, and see if there's still openings and things like that. And we'd love to see you there. Also, walk registrations are open this June and October. OCD Walk will be taking place across the country. You can visit iocdf.org/walk to find a walk near you. And finally, as Matt said, we're now accepting submissions for the online OCD conference. The deadline to submit is June 6th. This year's online OCD conference will feature 2 days of virtual programming for the entire OCD and related disorders community. You can visit onlineocdconference.org to learn more. Finally, this is a live stream is one of many. You can see the entire schedule at iocdf.org/peace of mind. As always, if you need resources, you can get to iocdf.org. Lastly, yes, there'll be a replay. As soon as this ends, you can actually click on it immediately. It'll be on Facebook, YouTube, and you can watch it absolutely again. And also, I love what Love Lana wrote at 8 p.m. Thank you, Ethan, and the rest of the family here. Appreciate you all. We are a family, for sure. You're never alone. Lastly, if you want to email me directly, you have a question, you have a comment, and I am so behind on email. So if you emailed me 2 months ago and I haven't responded, I am so sorry. But email me at justethan@iocdf.org. There it is. Email goes directly to me. No one else sees it. It is as confidential as Gmail will allow it to be. So me and Elon Musk may read it. Otherwise, and I know he's not Gmail. Don't correct me. Have a beautiful evening. Thank you so much for spending Tuesday evening with us. Stay safe. Have a wonderful evening, week. Stay vigilant. Feel the feels, as I always say, and don't let OCD off the hook. Tomorrow, I think we have an Ask the Expert. Regardless, tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern time, Chris and Liz will be doing their thing. If you have additional questions or comments, definitely tune in. Say hello. Have a beautiful evening, and we'll see you actually next week. So won't be skipping 2 weeks. So we have another community conversations next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. So we see you then. Have a great evening. Good night.